Hello, everybody. NicMakesPlays here. Today, I'm going to go over my champion tier list. I do a champion tier list every single time we get a new expansion or new champions, what have you. Let it go a few weeks, just to see how the champions do. And I think that I collected what I think is the current champion tier list in Legend of Runeterra after the stream expansion just came out. So, let's get into this. I'm going to say my placements of each champion and why I think they're there. So each champion tier list has more champions, obviously. So they're gonna get briefer and briefer with the explanations because a ton of champions here. I can't, as much as I love talking about, I can talk about every champion forever. I get very into Legends of Runeterra, but I'm gonna have to make every champion relatively brief just so we can get through all of them. But let's begin. First, we have Twisted Fate. He is the best champion in the entire game. Why? Because on turn 4, you can play him. You pick a card, then you play him playing blue card. Okay, so what this does is that his ability blue card lets you draw a card, then pick a card lets you draw 3 cards next turn. You draw for turn, that's 5, and then if you rummage, discarding stress testing, you draw 8 cards with him on the field. That's his level up. So his level up says if you draw 8 cards, level me up, and his level up essentially win the game. Like his level up is so good. If you level him up, you win the game. And it's very easy to achieve. It's not like you just need pick a card and rummage stress testing. You could have pick a card and double rummage. You could rummage into rummage. It's basically extremely easy in the current expansion to level Twisted Fate, and his level up's so powerful. You get red card, gold card, blue card every single turn, and it's basically an auto win. He does only have low health, but the issue is that the deck he's in, it doesn't really matter. For example, in the best deck right now, Twisted Fate Fizz, if you try to kill him, use your mana to kill him, then they just kill you with all the cards they drew, like Wiggly Burblefishes. And if you don't kill him, you lose anyway. And then if you play him in Targon, they have a lot of protection for him, like Pale Cascade, Sunblessed Vigor, Bastion, stuff like that. So he's kind of just like a looming threat where you have to use your resources to remove him, but the enemy deck's also doing other important things that are going to kill you. So it's hard to deal with both. Even if you have the answer like Mystic Shot. And with blue card, the one that draws a card, even if you kill him, he still draws a card. So it's like you're down card advantage either way. All right, so next, Aphelios. Aphelios, debatably the best champion as well. These two are in a tier of their own. They're like leagues above every other champion. Aphelios is so strong for many regions. Right now, Targon is considered to be like the best region, at least at higher level play. I know in Masters North America, which is where I live, the Aphelios Zoe has a 61% win rate, and Aphelios Twisted Fate has a 62% win rate. So both Aphelios decks are pushing 60% plus win rates in Masters at the highest level of ranked play. So very strong. The reason he's strong is because he's infinite card generation. He generates card after card after card after card, and all of his weapons are amazing. It's not like you're generating Draven's Axis, not real cards, like things that actually influence the game. Like every card he gives you, his new weapons are so influential to the game. So when you play him, you already get a +1 card advantage, right? You play him and he gives you a moon weapon, okay? You get to choose between summoning a 2-drop from your deck, Lifesteal, Overwhelm, Stunning Stun for 2 turns, dealing 3 to an enemy follower. So amazing cards, right? In Bilgewater, you put him with Bilgewater. Usually you go Aphelios, Zoe, and just the 3 Bilgewater cards are Boxbus. Boxbus is a 2-mana 3/4 challenger that when summoned, it deals when it's played from the hand, it deals 3 to itself. It becomes a 3/1 challenger. I have to show you the card, but basically just know that if you summon this card from the deck, you summon Aphelios, use Crescendum as summons a 2-drop from your deck. Your only 2-drop is this card that's a 3/4 challenger when summoned from the deck. So basically you play him on turn 3, then for 2 mana you get a 3/4 challenger from your deck. That is insanely strong on turn 3 because you're already summoning an infinite value generator. On top of that, you have a 3/4 challenger, just able to clear your enemy threats and deal with the field. Your Boxbus usually always 2 for 1s because it has such high health, being a 3/4 challenger for only 2 spell mana. To play it, then each turn, Aphelios gives you more moon weapons if you play 2 cards per turn, which is basically every turn. So, in short, Aphelios summons a 3/4 challenge from the deck. Even not in that deck, he's still broken. You don't even have to be playing that. Just summoning anything for your deck, like Mountain Goat, Ballistic Bot, whatever. But then after you do that, so you summon a 2-drop from your deck. Then he deals 3 to enemy follower, which is just removing enemy follower. Then he can stun something for 2 turns. And you can always just go for lifesteal whenever you need. The lifesteal is what makes him such a huge influence on the game. It's like whenever you're even relatively close to being down in life, then you just heal bring back. So here, let me break it down. I'll do Aphelios in a short thing. he generates infinite cards, right? So you can't outgrind him. He just keeps generating infinite moon weapons, right? So like as the game goes on, you'll run out of cards because they're getting generated cards using real cards. So you have to try and kill them before they generate so many cards because you can't keep up with it, right? If you try and kill them, he just uses lifesteal. He just uses his lifesteal weapon and then heals all his health back. So it's like you can't outgrind them. You have to try and kill them, then they shield it all back. And also like, you know, unit removal with the Celebrimbrum and the stuns. And also a big thing is that the Overwhelm isn't really used to go for game. What you use the Overwhelm weapon for is you give a unit lifesteal, and then you also give it Overwhelm. So if they try and block your lifesteal unit and like Glimpse or Fervor to like stop the lifesteal, then the Overwhelm just goes through anyway in the heal. So basically it generates infinite cards. He's pretty much just 10 times better than every other card in the game, along with Twisted Fate. That's the way I see it. It's just really just infinite card generation, and all the cards generates are amazing. It's a crazy toolbox. He's pretty insane. Alright, so Twisted Fate, Phelios, S+. Now let's move on. Try and keep it brief. Next is Lee Sin. Lee Sin is really strong. I think if they nerf Twisted Fate and Aphelios and not Lee Sin, he will become, you know, the best deck again. He's just really good. He has built-in barrier to protect himself. He can go for one-shot kills. He's a bit slow right now compared to Twisted Fate Fizz decks, which is why he's not an S+ tier. But he still can one-shot people 20-0 in one turn. You don't even have to one-shot people. You can just, you know, Dragon Rage for 10 damage, then next turn protect him, Dragon for 10 damage. His deck has answers to all kinds of things with Hush, Eye the Dragon, Sparklified Heal, Invoking from Zoe, just all kinds of crazy stuff. So he's basically the next best deck, and I think that if they don't change him this next patch, then they nerf Twisted Fate Fizz, he will become the best deck again. So I guess in short, he's just he's hard to play, but he does so much for one card. Just for the picture's old, he actually costs 5 now. Yeah, he just protects himself and he goes for one-shot kills, and he's insanely hard to deal with and insanely easy to win with. So very strong. Or he's extremely easy to win with when you get him going. His deck's very solid, very good. All right, Zoe. Zoe's insane. Zoe, it's debatably better than Lee Sin actually, but they're all in the S tier. Zoe is just a one-drop elusive that when she attacks, she generates you free card advantage, right? You get an invoke. You have to pay for the invoke, but it's kind of like a Aphelios, like in a mini way. It's like she's generating you free cards from a toolbox. Whenever she strikes, you get more free cards. The toolbox she gives you is really strong because it has cards like Crescent Strike, which stun 3-mana stun 2 units can, like, you can use that later in the game to just stop your opponent's momentum on a huge swing, huge turn if they try and deal with your stuff, or play Sit Through the Bold or whatever, and you can just stun that. Equinox, 1-mana Silence a Follower. That card's really strong against things like Leviathan. You draw a card with the dog. It's just like another infinite value generating. But the thing with her is that you have to kill her, because if you don't, her level up says when you play a unit, it gives your whole field its keywords. So if you play an elusive, your whole field gets elusive. If you play a lifesteal, your whole field gets lifesteal. She's just a win con on her own because of that, as well as she starts giving you Behold the Infinites. So it's like you have to kill her. But usually what happens is you play turn 1, you attack, you get a free card, right? If they Mystic Shot her right away, let's say like the next turn they just Mystic Shot her, right? You still lost a card advantage because you used a card and they lost a card to Zoe, but they generated a free card. So they get a free invoke and you both traded your Mystic Shot for their Zoe, and you're using a 2-mana card to kill a 1-mana card. So it's really insane. And then decks that don't have removal like that, she can just keep generating cards. So she's a huge card advantage generator, and you play her with Aphelios and it just generates so many cards, it's hard to beat. Next is Fiora. Fiora's insane. Fiora's absolutely insane this season. Probably the best Fiora's maybe ever been. We have multiple Fiora decks tearing up high-ranked ladder. We have Fiora Shen, which I think might have the highest win rate in the game right now. I think it's pushing, like, at certain regions, it's like, I think I saw it like 65% or something. I'm sure it's different between rank and stuff, but yeah, Fiora Shen's just a super well-rounded deck. It's been tier 1, like, on and off since the beta. She's just well-rounded. I mean, the win con she threatens demands answers, and I think in this age in Runeterra, there's just so many cards that work well with her that you're able to protect her very easily and go for the Fiora wins. It's not even against, like, you know, aggro decks with things she can farm. It's like you have Shen, you have the barriers, you have Troll Chance, you play the mono Fiora. There's all kinds of stuff that can make it really achievable to get that 4-kill win con. So 3D challenger by herself, but the win con she threatens is second to none, I feel. There's also Mono Fiora, so besides Shem Fiora being insanely strong, because we know how that works, the barriers. Mono Fiora is just 3 Fiora, 37 spells. You run 3 Entreat to search her out more often. This deck, I think, was one of the first decks, if not the first deck this whole season to hit Masters and rank 1. You just play her and 37, or I guess 6 of her with Entreat, and then 34 combat tricks, and most decks can't deal with that. The only thing that can deal with that really is Hush, and if you don't draw Hush, you lose, so that just kind of farms most decks in this meta. Besides Sargon, like Shadow Isles and Shrima and aggro and stuff like that. So very hard to interact with. I know that other players have been playing her with the Phelios. You know, who would have thought, put 2 of the top 5 champs together, good deck. That deck has hit top 5, I think, the European Master Ladder, and even people were experimenting with Shrima Fiora. But basically, just like mostly ladder is just Twist Fate Fizz, Lysandra Trundle, Targon Zoe, like a Phelios Zoe, and Fiora. So her win con's very achievable, and it's powerful, and it always will be powerful. If they never change her, I think that she's just going to keep getting better and better because there's so many more cards that work with her now that you can just build whole decks around her. And yeah, multiple tier 1 or multiple viable Fiora decks. All right, next is Draven. So I want to say real quick, there's a huge gap between Fiora and the A tiers, or I'm sorry, the S plus and the A tiers. Like those top 5 are kind of in their own league right now, and then there's a drop off. Like Draven previously was in my top 5, and he doesn't feel anywhere close to as strong as the ones in top 5 right now. So I want to say there's a pretty big drop between the S plus S tier and A tier. I next we have Draven. Pretty good Draven Ezreal, generates the axes, as we all know. Discard for this for Rummage, for card advantage. He's self-sufficient. 3/3 quick attack. They can't block him, usually. And then you get 3 damage in, and if they do block him, they lose the unit. And then he's really strong in Draven Jinx because he allows you to use all your discard cards. You can discard the access carding like Flame Chomper, hook away a blocker, push for huge damage, helps you level up Jinx. He's just insanely self-sufficient. You don't level him up that much, but he's actually an easy level up. It's kind of a common misconception he's hard to level up for some reason. You literally can just summon an attack, and then next turn you can level him up. But usually you use the axes for other reasons is the thing. You want to use them for card advantage. But yeah, Draven's really strong. Just well-rounded, self-efficient unit. He's one of the best 3-ups in the whole game. Next is Trundle. Trundle's really good. Trundle is a 4/5 now, so he used to be a 4/6. They nerfed him, thank goodness. Now he's still really strong. He's still amazing, but he holds down the field and he adds a huge element to the deck that he's in. Basically, you can play Catalyst on turn 3 and then play him on turn 4, or you can just play him on turn 5. He kind of just holds down the mid game for Shadow Freyord, which is a tier 1 archetype pretty much every single season. And he gives you the Ice Pillars to help level up Lysandra, but he also threatens a win con of his own with the Overwhelm he gets when he levels up. The Ice Pillar can help remove things. He's really hard to deal with because you have things that board clear, like you just stick a Trundle on the board, and then they have a board of like mini units, and they try to attack, Trundle just kills one of the regens. And if they develop even further, be like, okay, well, I can't kill Trundle, he's too big for me, but I'll try and go really wide to like push damage through Trundle. At least he only has one blocker, then they avalanche you. So certain decks can deal with him easier than others, but regardless, he kind of holds down the mid game and it's just a well-rounded unit. The Ice Pillar, again, is just a free card advantage, level up Lysandra, which we'll get to next. So Lysandra, debatably better than Trundle, is the newest Shadow Freyord variant. It is probably the best new champion, or I guess she is the best new champion to come out of this expansion. Lysandra's insane. Yeah, I guess I could see her being better than Trundle, but I put them next to each other. One thing I want to note on Lysandra real quick, this is kind of a not as talked about part of her. She's insanely good defense against aggro. So a big thing that there's to note for Shadow Freyord on turn 3 is usually on turn 3 they don't have much to do except for like Avalanche and Catalyst. So let's say you don't have Catalyst of Valence, right? The card that ramps, and you have like Avalanche. That means you have to use Avalanche that turn for a good Avalanche, or you just pass. And if you pass with 3 mana bank, 3 mana regular, you'll just lose the 3 mana because you won't use anything. So you kind of just have idle time on turn 3 where it's like either do nothing or I play Avalanche. And if Avalanche isn't good that turn, you just lose your 3 mana, and that really sucks. But now Lysandra costing 3 is perfect because it allows you to not lose your mana and just develop her to the board as a 2/3 with tough, which is actually a good blocker against a lot of forms of aggro. Like I play Lucian Azir a lot, and that blocks all my Sand Soldiers, it blocks Lucian. So yeah, they basically can fork you with like if you try and develop the Avalanche unit, if you don't develop, they just play Lysandra. And even Lysandra's just good to fit that 3 cost spot. But besides that, it's not why she's insane. It's just a bonus perk. Why she's insane is that so she levels up, which is very easy to do with Trundle's Ice Pillar or multiple Ice Pillars. People are using Ice Pillar Fitting Memories on it to like you just play an Ice Pillar, Fitting Memories the Ice Pillar, play another one, then she instantly levels up. When she levels up, your Nexus gets tough, which means it takes 1 less damage from all sources of damage. That is pretty insane. It makes it a lot harder to kill in a region that already has a lot of healing, a lot of stalling. Shadow Freyord is really resilient already, so it's tough. Then she gives you the Watcher, which is probably the biggest deal why she's so good. She generates you a card in hand called the Watcher, which is an 11/17/11 cost. And it costs 0 when you've played 4 cards that cost 8 or more. And what you do is you play this card called Spectrum Patron, which says summon an ephemeral copy of a card in your hand, and you just summon the Watcher. it's kind of hard to explain. I'm sorry, just bear with me. The Watcher's effect is when it attacks, obliterate the entire enemy deck, which means they lose next turn. So basically what you do is you level her up, you play Spectral Matron, you summon the Watcher from your hand, and then you attack, and then you obliterate the enemy deck. So when Lysandra levels up, you get a Watcher in your hand. And then you cheat it into play, and you obliterate the enemy deck. You can either play it manually, by it costing 0 to probably just naturally playing 4 8+ cost units over the game, or you can cheat and play a Spectral Matron, or by using Roar, so she kind of gives you a huge win con against all kinds of decks. 11-17 is very hard to deal with. And even if they were to stun it or something, you still have the real one in your hand if it's someone else Spectral Matron. So I guess the point is she's a good 3 cost in the deck, gives your Nexus tough, you're more resilient, she gives you your win con. Another thing she does is she gives you fleeting ice shards every single turn that costs 0, which don't hit your Nexus because you have tough, but it pings enemy Nexus. So you can use those to remove enemy boards of 1 health, couple with Avalanche to clear things with 3 health. She's just very well-rounded, and the Watcher is a pretty simple win con against almost all decks. The deck can function by stalling a lot, and just stalling until you play the Watcher and then win. So that's one of the best decks in the game. I guess Lysandra gives you multiple win cons. It's kind of hard to explain without showing you the Watcher, but just know that she gives you a card that you can cheat into play that obliterates the enemy deck. And that's one of the tier 1 strategies right now. Next is Azir, the best streamer champion to come out of the new expansion. I think he's really strong. I wouldn't say his decks are tier 1, but tier 2, you have a lot of solid decks. You have Shadow Isles burn with Azir and like Phantom Prankster, which I play a lot. You have Lucian Azir, which I play a lot. The Sand Soldiers generate units to die for Lucian. He's really strong because A, is good stats, the 1-5 for 3. B, he just gives you a lot of free damage. Like, you attack and the Sand Soldiers are 1/1s, but if they get Nexus Strike, then they do 2 damage. And he can level up extremely easily. He levels up when you summon 10 units. Pretty much every deck can summon 10 units that plays him. So easy level up. When he's leveled up, he buffs himself and allies he summons each round, or allies that are summoned each round. So he can push for huge damage each turn without really doing much. I put it this way. You can just kind of sit on your back row and put on pressure and the Sand Soldiers attack for you. He gets an easy level up, and then you can push with everything, and then he kills them. So he just big damage output for cheap, and if they try and make a huge aggressive push, you can block with him. He blocks the 1 health units really well. If you give him like Shapestone or Sharp Sight, he has tons of health to live through, and then the Sharp Sight or the Shapestone give him attack. So I just say he's good stats for a 3-drop, and he levels up Lucian, and he's just kind of a self-sufficient, easy level up champion. So very good. Next is Jinx. This may be a hot take that she's an A tier, but I don't think so. I think Jinx is absolutely insane in discard aggro. Yes, she's not really played anything else because there isn't really a deck for her besides that, but that's the whole point. Her whole point of her, she's a discard deck. So in that deck, I think she's absolutely insane. I play a lot of discard aggro, so I know some of you guys are like, oh, Jinx shouldn't be that high, but I think Jinx is insane. Discard aggro is a solid tier 2 deck, so it's already decent, right? And she's everything you want in that deck. Whenever you're playing discard aggro, you just think, I want Jinx after the first 3 turns. Not only does she help you finish the game by giving you the 4 damage Nexus burn spell each round, she also draws you 2 cards per round. A thing with aggro is they run a team pretty fast. But she lets you refuel and keep drawing 2 cards each round while giving you win con. So she's perfect. Like, not only does she your burn finisher, but she keeps doing it over and over again while drawing you more cards. I mean, there are turns where you level her on turn 4, it's a rarity, but you do, and then you just can't lose because you're just drawing 2 cards a turn. It's pretty insane what she can do. There's a lot of times where you see discard aggro players, like, they have nothing, like, they have nothing left, like, you cleared everything, they're going to lose, and they play Jinx, and then all of a sudden, the entire game's in their favor, and they win. Like, she's just one of the single most impactful cards I've probably ever seen in Runeterra, so I think Jinx is very powerful. Next, we have Ezreal. Pretty good. When he strikes, he gets a Mystic Shot to remove enemy units. That's in the early game, so you can get, like, free removal for 3, and they can stop him with, like, Sharp Sight and other elusive, so it's fair. But I think he's still pretty good because he can burn for a lot of damage when he's leveled up, dealing 2 damage to enemy Nexus if you target enemy with the spell, or 1 damage for every spell you use. I feel, yes, he's not as crazy as his old form. He's actually a perfectly balanced form now. He's still one of the best champs in the game. He just normally, his level up form chips away for like 8+ damage easily, as well as removing cards in the mid and early game. So next we have Lucian. I think Lucian is so insane right now. I think this is the best I've ever seen Lucian in all of Legends of Runeterra. Even when Lucian Hecarim was pretty big, I didn't think that highly of it, but now he's amazing with Azir. If you have 2 Sand Soldier generators like Azir and Empress Dais, you play Lucian, you can easily see 4 Sand Soldiers die and level up Lucian. If you have a scout attack with Lucian and like an Azir, you can do, say, Blinding Assault, attack, someone's a Sand Soldier, they both die, attack again, get more Sand Soldiers like Dunekeeper, and it's just so easy to level him up, and his level up's extremely powerful. You get Rally every single turn, it's double attack, so they have to block him or they usually die. they're taking 8 damage. And then the Sand Soldiers, when they die, they trigger his rally. So he's very easy to level up. He's a huge win con, and the deck also a lot of protection. It runs Sharp Sight, Shapestone, Range Resolve. So I think Lucian is a perfect match for Azir, and I love the way they work together. I think Azir is one of the stronger champions out of the whole, as you can see, stream expansion, and Lucian is part of what works so well with him, so that's amazing. Next we have Elise. This is probably the weakest I've ever seen Elise. She's debatably the best 2-drop in the whole game. She's a 2/3 that summons a spider with Fearsome. That sounds pretty basic, but she's just a 2-drop, so what do you expect? But a 2/3 with Fearsome, that summons a spider every turn, is really hard to deal with. They usually can't block her because she has the Fearsome, and then the spider is really annoying, so it chips away at enemies' health, and some at times they have 1 health units, so those are just hard for them to deal with the spider, and they become like a real blocker. The spider blocks the 1 health unit. If they do, let's say they have a 3/2, right, and you attack with her, and they block with the 3/2, you still get the free 1/1 spider, so she's generically good. In spider aggro, she can become a level up win con by giving everything Fearsome, get your little spiders to hook away the Fearsome blockers, push for huge damage. I think Elise will always be good. She's just generically, probably the best 2-drop in the game, or one of them. So there's not too many Elise decks, but Spider Aggro is still a decent tier 2 deck right now, and she can be played in other things like Endure if you want, or like certain variants of of Stream at SI Burn, because again she's generically good. Usually can chip in 2 with her Fearsome to get spiders, so pretty good champ. Next we have Ashe. I think Ashe is really good right now. Sometimes she's better, sometimes she's worse, but she's always really solid. Right now she's really strong. She pairs amazing with LeBlanc. A lot of people thought when LeBlanc came out, like, oh, who do you play with? She doesn't seem that good. She works great with Ashe. So we'll start with Ashe. We'll get to LeBlanc in a bit. But the reason Ashe is so good is because, I guess with LeBlanc also, you have a lot of 5+ attack units that are amazing with Trifarian Assessor, Whispered Words, and Reputation keyword. They both complement each other because Ashe is easy to level LeBlanc. So the good thing with Ashe is that you can attack with her, it freezes the enemy, and then you get 5 seen for LeBlanc, and if they try and attack you, you can like Troll Chant her or Brittle Steel the enemy, and block with Ashe, and then you've seen 10 for LeBlanc. So Ashe is really good, being able to remove things that have Frostbite with cards like Calling Strike, Glory Seeker, Trifarian Glory Seeker that is, and she also has a win con. When you level her up, you can Crystal Arrow everything. Units with 0 attack can't block, and you go for game with your huge statted units. It's basically that like Ashe and LeBlanc have a solid deck together with the Yetis. They have Trifarian Assessor, Calling Strike, Reckoning's really good right now against Twisted Fate Fizz, against the Targon. Tons of draw with Whispered Words. It's just a well-rounded deck that has beefy units. Ashe threatens the win con with the Frostbite, and it's really strong right now. So that's that. Next we have Nasus. So a lot of people thought Nasus wouldn't be that good when Nasus was coming out. Nasus is amazing. He's one of my favorite champions with that expansion. The reason Nasus is so good is that decks just can't deal with the 10/10 with Fearsome. You can play with Kindred, you can play with Thresh, you can play him in aggro as a top end by himself, but by the time you play him on turn 6, he's usually around an 8/8 or so. An 8/8 Fearsome with 6 is pretty good, right? And then he keeps getting bigger while on the field. So if they don't deal with him immediately, then he just becomes a 10/10. And when he attacks, he's a 10/10. He gets Spell Shield and all enemies -1/-0. So why is this so good? Yes, it loses to Hush, but outside of that matchup, you're able to basically make an attacker they have to block, and they start losing the field control. A lot of decks just can't deal with the high health he has, and you're putting out a lot of damage with your other units while Nasus is also on the field. If he levels up, then your entire enemy board gets -1/-0, and you kind of just lose all your threats. Like imagine that against like scouts, right? Or even against things like Lucian Azir and stuff like that. They kind of just lose their win con. So it can come down to Nasus gets 1 strike in, he levels up, and it's GG. You can use it with Atrocity. Atrocity can go for game, especially when he's leveled up. He has Spell Shield to protect him with Atrocity. It's like on paper, he seems like he's okay. When you actually play against him in the game, you realize that his stats are extremely hard to deal with, and once you play him, there's pretty much no removing him without Hush, and you just win the game. So next we have Thresh. Thresh is actually good just because Nasus. It's the only deck he's played in right now. But Thresh is perfect for the Nasus deck because you have tons of cards that slay and die easily, like the Butcher, Blighted Caretaker, Curse Keeper combos, stuff like that. And you easy level Thresh. Thresh can summon Nasus from your deck. Unlike They Who Endure, which Nasus is compared to, he's not a champion. So you can't summon They Who Endure from your deck. But Thresh can summon Nasus from your deck, which is huge. You can use Thresh to hook away their Fearsome blocker, play Nasus, attack for his whatever attack is with Fearsome directly, and win the game. So Nasus and Thresh are a great pair. Next we have Shen. This is kind of just Fiora support. Fiora and Shen go hand in hand. Shen gives Fiora the barriers, help her to level up. Even if you don't get Fiora's level up, just a Shen plus Fiora killing something with her challenger and barrier is just free card generation or value because you're not using anything and then you're clearing card. You're getting free +1s in card advantage. So they can control the board really well. He levels up easily with Riposte, Spirit Refuge, stuff like that. Fiora Shen's just been a tier 1 deck since the beta on and off, and it's one of the highest win rate decks in the entire game right now. Next we have Sejuani. So Sejuani's pretty cool. She has multiple roles right now. She works great with Ashe. You can do like Ashe Sejuani, Ashe LeBlanc Sejuani. She just freezes something. She's good removal. On her base form, she's a 6-mana 5/6. Gets like Frostbite and Vulnerable, so you kill an enemy while chipping in overwhelm damage. As we know, freezing is good for Ashe. But another thing is Renekton. So in the Overwhelm deck, she's key. You play Sejuani and Renekton. Sejuani is Overwhelm. She gives things vulnerable. When Renekton attacks a vulnerable enemy, he gets buffed. So Sejuani and Renekton are the Overwhelm deck of the season. So she has multiple decks that are pretty good. Two tier 2 decks, that being Ashe LeBlanc, Sejuani, and Sejuani Renekton. So very good. Next we have Fizz. So Fizz isn't why Twisted Fate Fizz is so good. Like he's in the deck, but he's not like a key factor. But he still makes the B tier because he's a solid 1-drop. He chips in for 2 elusive each turn. You can buff him with Suit Up to make him a 4/4, and then he also has an ability where he can negate things that target him. This is huge. This adds an element to the Twisted Fate Fizz deck to beat Lysandra Trundle. A lot of people struggle against Lysandra Trundle with Twisted Fate Fizz. What the good Twisted Fate Fizz players do is they suit up on Fizz. There's no way to really kill that, and they just win the game with like Fizz control, basically not control, but mostly centered around chipping away with Fizz and then finishing with the burn spells. So Fizz is very strong. I mean, what do you expect for a 1-drop? Nothing crazy. His Shen spell can help you go for game. He kind of fits the deck perfectly, where if you draw Suit Up, then you can put on Fizz and then you win. The thing that makes it so good is there's so much draw in Twisted Fate Fizz. Again, Fizz isn't why the deck's so good, but since the deck's so good and allows you to draw so much, you pick a card, draw 3, rummage, draw 2, and then you're going to draw Suit Up at a discounted price and put it on Fizz, and then you can win. Next we have LeBlanc. When LeBlanc came out, people thought she wasn't going to be that great. She looked very basic, which she kind of is. And I get that. But in terms of how good she is, she's actually one of the better champs. You can see I did put her over Sivir. Sivir has one deck that's actually good. There's other okay decks. But her best deck is Sivir LeBlanc. LeBlanc has Sivir LeBlanc and LeBlanc Ashe, which is also better than Sivir LeBlanc. So LeBlanc has 2 decks that are tier 2, and one of them's better than LeBlanc Sivir. So anyways, so she's a 3-mana 5/2 with quick attack. That's already huge. Yes, if they have Mystic Shot, you do trade down. They do a 2-mana Mystic Shot for your 3-mana LeBlanc. But if they don't, because not every deck runs Mystic Shot, you're able to play her on turn 3 and attack and push for 5 damage. If they block, they lose their unit. If they don't block, they take 1/4 their health. That's huge, while also getting closer to her level up. She sees 5 out of the 15. So she's pretty big for that reason. Also in the deck that she's in. You got Bloody Business, attack with a strike spell that lets you strike with a 5+ attack unit. You have Trifarian Assessor, lets you draw cards off the Ashe deck. Whispered Words, you're working towards reputations. There's tons of 5+ attack synergy. Her level up's also easier to achieve than it seems because it includes blocking. You can block with your 5 attack units like Ashe or a Yeti or Sivir, and it works towards her level up. When you get the Mirror Image, you can clone Ashe, which allows you to push for game with her level up. You can clone Sivir, clone LeBlanc, or you can use it as a blocker, just a 2-mana spell that gives you a free Mirror blocker. So she's really good. I guess people underrate how early turn 3 is in the game and how there's not many answers to something like a 5/2 quick attack on turn 3. People are like, oh, just do this, do that on her, but a lot of time it just doesn't go that way that early in the game. You don't have too much mana to work with, so she can really just swing the game in your favor right away. So I guess she demands immediate answers. If you don't have them, then you win with LeBlanc. So very good. Also works well with exhaust and stuff for her quick attack with the vulnerable. Next is Sivir. Sivir is only used with LeBlanc. Very good in the Sivir LeBlanc deck. She is a 5/4 for 4 with quick attack. That's generically good. She has Spell Shield, which is the best part of her, I suppose, where you're able to use like Bloody Business and stuff, and they can't stop it because she has Spell Shield. She strikes, so you usually can't answer it. She's good with a vulnerable because she has quick attack. And she threatens a win con. Basically, when you level her up, happens over time, happens in the deck. When she attacks, she gives all allies quick attack and spell shield. Usually that swing is such a big tempo for you that you win the entire game because they can't come back from you just pushing huge damage and usually clearing their field because they're forced to block against your quick attack units. So this server's pretty good. Next we have Misfortune. Misfortune fell off a lot. Her nerf, not having Overwhelm is not the biggest deal, but they also nerfed Grand Plaza. So Scouts are okay, kind of an anti-meta deck right now. They run Stony Suppressor to increase the cost of enemy spells while holding on the game with Misfortune and your Scouts and Challengers. She's also good in Pirate Aggro, so she's a solid champion overall. I think she's good. She has a few like low tier 2 decks. She's still a win con. In Scouts, of course, she can level, so that's good. I think the deck suffers from some inconsistencies because it's very reliant on Misfortune, and that shows how strong she is. But again, she's just okay compared to other champions this season, compared to how she used to be very, very high up on the tier list. Another thing is in Pirate Aggro, she's actually amazing because on turn 3, you play her, you attack, then it deals 1 to the Nexus and 1 to all blocking enemies. If enemies have 1 health, they'll just die right away, but you can't not block against Pirate Aggro because you take so much damage. So you kind of put your opponent in a situation where they either lose their blockers or they take a ton of damage, which is huge. You usually never level her up in the Pirate Aggro deck, you just attack with her, but the damage has been done even with just 1 attack from Misfortune in that deck. Next we have Diana. Diana's insanely strong. Targon's considered the best region in the game right now. She works great with Zoe, great with Aphelios, and can get you board control very easily. So when she comes in the field with the Nightfall effect, she gets to challenge and quick attack an enemy. This usually just removes that enemy. You can use her to remove opposing Aphelioses, Zoes, Twisted Fates, stuff like that. She works great with Aphelios' moon weapons to get overwhelmed to go for game, or to get lifesteal to heal a ton. It's a new Nightfall card called Onto Dusk, which is a Nightfall card that triggers a Nightfall ability, so it's 2 procs for her level up. Makes her very easy to level up. If you use it on her, she gets huge attack. She's basically just genetically good removal right now. She's a good chance spell. Pale Cascade, it was nerfed, but it's still one of Targon's best cards. So Diana's definitely on the higher echelon of champions because although Zoe Aphelios is superior to Diana Zoe or Diana Aphelios, if you were to play Diana Zoe or Diana Aphelios, it's still one of the better decks in the whole game. So she's really strong. Next is Swain. Swain's making a little bit of a comeback. Leviathan is hurt by Equinox since Targon's release because you can just stun or make his Leviathan not have its effect, and he's as good as Leviathan is. But even still, you have decks like Swain Twisted Fate. There's like Swain Lysandra builds going around right now with a lot of removal, like Ice Shard, Avalanche, Death's Hand, and then you have Flock, easy level Swain. You kind of just board clear, and if you play Swain Leviathan, then you win. He's good with Yasuo. So Swain's just a built-in win con with Leviathan. You play Leviathan, you play Swain, you stun the whole enemy board, you attack them for game, push for huge damage. Leviathan does 3 every turn. So Swain's still one of the better strategies in the entire game, and I could see him getting better with more cards. The Ice Shard removal really helped him have synergy with Lysandra and do new things like that. Next we have Karma. Karma's the hardest to rate out of all champions because some people would put it at the very top, some people put it at the very bottom. I'll put her in the middle. It all depends what you look at her for. Like, individually, like, if you just don't account for the rest of the game, she's, like, the best champ ever, because when you play her at turn 10, you win. Like, you usually always win if you have Karma. It's like, impossible to beat her. But the hard part is, Twisted Fate Fizz being the best deck in the meta is too fast. They usually die before turn 10, even with a deck built around, like, healing, such as Zoe Karma, which is probably her best deck right now. It can't keep up with Twisted Fate Fizz. It's very hard to get to the turn 10. So Karma, she's still here because against other matchups, you can get to Karma turns and you win the game when that happens. And I could see her always going up because she's just such a potent effect. Whenever the right meta is there for her or she has the right deck, she becomes Bailey best champ in the game because she has been the best champ in the game at one point. But right now, I put her in B tier because she's held back with Twisted Fate Fizz. I could see her popping up again when the meta is more, I guess, welcoming of strategies that go to turn 10. So she's good. Zoe Karma's a good deck, but I would put her in B tier. Next we have Teemo. Very good. 1-drop. Does 5 puff caps when he attacks. He's elusive. So he just chips in really easy damage to the elusive. That's good for burn decks. For puff cap decks, he also puts more puff caps in the deck, of course, which is great with Hexcore Foundry, Better Investigator, and stuff like that. So they draw him the puff caps and die. He usually always does more than 1 damage on average because you attack, you put the 5 puff caps in the deck, they usually draw like 1 or 2 or whatever. If he levels up, you double the puff caps in the deck, which is a win con on its own. You have Teemo Ezreal is the main puff cap deck, you have Teemo Sejuani, there's Teemo Draven, which is a burn deck, so Teemo's just really well-rounded, pretty amazing 1-drop. Next is Renekton. Very good with Sejuani. Renekton Sejuani overwhelms a solid tier 2 deck. He's a 4/4 for 4, which is average, but if he challenges something, then he gets +2/+1, becoming a 6/5 overwhelm for 4 mana. You have Exhaust to get things vulnerable so you can challenge them. You have Ruthless Predator, you have Sejuani. He's just a new way to play the Overwhelm deck is Stream of Freyord, and him and Sejuani are in the center. Mostly him. Another huge perk of Renekton in that deck, this is probably one of the biggest, is that deck doesn't have a solid 4-drop. The 4-drop has always been a slot that Noxus has struggled with, because it used to be Noxus Sejuani or Noxus Freyord was the Overwhelm deck. But now if you go Stream of Freyord, you have a 4 cost. The only other 4 cost is if you have Ancient Yeti your opening hand, it discounts the 4 by turn 4. But you don't always open Ancient Yeti, so Renekton gives you another way to get your 4 cost reliably at Overwhelm and have a good curve. So he's pretty strong, and a good champ spell with this Predator. Next is Kalista. Kalista's pretty amazing in Burn, pretty amazing in They Who Endure. Kalista's amazing in any deck that uses the Curse Keeper, Butcher, Bark Beast combos, like Caretaker, because she's able to level so easily, even off a simple, you play Kalista, the next turn you play Bloody Caretaker on Curse Keeper. That's 1 kill for the Bloody Caretaker, and then 2 kills for the Saplings. She levels up very easily. She's good in Fearsomes. You can play her in, like, if you want Spider Aggro, most people don't play her. You can play her in Pure Fearsomes, just the Shadow Isles with all the Fearsomes, like the Mist Race. So whether she's just used for her base form of a 3-mana 4/3 Fearsome in Fearsomes, or she's used to push damage or level up with They Who Endure, she's a good level up, an easy level up, and it's a threat. If it reborns the Wraith Callers, then they summon Mist Race. Even if it reborns just anything, even like a 2/1 Bloody Caretaker, it protects her and lets her push for more damage. So she's very strong. She's just a generically good champion. I think she's amazing. Next is Darius. Darius is really good because he's one of the biggest damage outputs in the entire game on turn 6. He's kind of just raw stats. You level him up by turn 6 by putting your enemy nexus at 10 or less, which is pretty easy to do in Overwhelm deck, chipping away for all kinds of damage. Or in a burn deck, I've seen people play Azir Darius, Azir Draven Darius, because what you do is you just make sure you get them by turn 6 to 10 or less, and you just slam them down, 10-6. If they don't have a stun, they don't have a hush, stuff like that, you just win. So basically, he's a bomb. You play him as a win con. If they don't answer, you just push for, up to 10 damage, and then you win the game. Very, very strong. He has all kinds of decks, such as, again, the Azir burn deck. With him as the top end, you have him with the Overwhelm deck, the Noxus Freyord, so he's very good. Next is Kindred. Kindred's a champion I can see going up a lot. I think Kindred has potential to be a maybe AAS tier champion in time. Right now, the meta's not that great for her. The issue with Kindred right now that puts her in the C tier is that the main decks, like Twisted Fate Fizz and Aphelios, have a lot of, chump blockers for her prey, for her mark. They can put in Spacey Sketcher or a Daring Poros. When you will play Kindred, then it'll only kill a 1/1. It's not a big deal. She's also kind of expensive the turn you play her. I mean, 5 mana 4/4 quick attack is an immediate reward. But regardless, she could also get extremely out of hand. I like her versus Lissandra Trundle, funny enough. That doesn't play many units. That's kind of why I like her. They usually only play Trundle or Lissandra a lot of the time. You can just mark the Trundle and kill it. So she gets a lot of value. She can, if not answered, just kill things over and over and over again. She gets +2/+2 each time, which is good. With Atrocity, if you play her with Gnosis, you already have Atrocity in your deck. You can use her with Concurrent Timelines, just kind of as a mid-game stall engine to hold on the field and kill things. So it's as simple as, if she's unanswered, she's insane. If she's answered, she's okay. Kindred is better against decks that you actually want to kill that many units. If their deck is weak to removal like that, you can get like an actual prey mark on like a Aphelios or a Trundle or something big. That's great. If it's against like more chump block, like where they have Hapless Aristocrats, stuff like that, it's not as great. But either way, she's still a pretty good champion. I see her going higher as the game goes on. Next we have Gangplank. Gangplank's pretty strong. He's just used in Pirate Aggro mostly. He's really important in that deck though. You easily can level him up. So he becomes a 6/6 with Overwhelm that gives you the keg. When he attacks, he does 2 to the enemy Nexus and their whole board. So he's basically just a huge win con in Pirate Aggro. Even if he's not leveled up, Pirate Aggro puts on so much pressure that by turn 5, a 5/5 Overwhelm's hard to deal with because they're used to dealing with your smaller units. And then the keg he gives you is nice for Sleep with the Fishes from Jack the Winner, with Fervor, Decimate, what have you. So he puts on huge damage and is a very, very important part of Pirate Aggro. Next, we have Aurelian Soul. This card is really strong. I think that someone actually ended up hitting rank 1 with him all of a sudden this season after no one playing him for most of the season. He is just an amazing win con. You can cheat him out early by playing him turn 8 with Eclipse Dragon. And when you play him, you usually just win. He's kind of like Karma. He just gives you the invokes every single turn, which are really powerful cards. If you level them up, they all cost 0. It basically comes down to, if you can get to turn 10, you win the Aurelian Soul. The reason he's in C tier is because you can't reliably do that too much. The best deck that can do that is just kind of a mid-range Demacia Targon deck. But he always goes in and out of style. I think that he's strong and will become stronger like Karma, when the meta slows down a bit after Twisted Fate, Fizz might get nerfed. Next we have Vi. Vi is just generically good. I will always probably at least put Vi in C tier. She's just well-rounded. She usually always 2-for-1 trades. She easily comes into the game with her effect, giving her like, 4 or 5 attack. Let's say she's a 5-5 with a tough challenger. You just challenge one of their weaker enemies. The tough keeps her alive. Then you trade with her into a big enemy, and she 2-for-1s. It happens almost every single time. She also threatens a win con. If you level her up, she pushes 5 damage every time she strikes for 10 attack. She also generally has a 10 attack. There's some cute things you can do with like some snipe scavenger map or whatever that gives her elusive and pushes for 10. She's usually a mainstay in the Heimer deck with her because she's able to control the board so well, and you can also heal her with Guiding Touch and stuff like that if you play with Targon. So yeah, Vi's just genetically good. Usually always 2-for-1s. Next I have Nocturne. I think that Nocturne's really good. I mean, Nocturne's just always underrated for some weird reason. He's amazing in the Nightfall deck. He's a bomb. Like, if you don't play Nocturne in your Nightfall deck, it's half as strong. Yes, you can play a Philios Diana, but that's just a whole different deck, right? That's just like a different, Invoke, Moon Weapon deck type thing. If you're playing like actual Nightfall, he wins the game so easily. First off, he's easy to level, regardless of what people think. I play him. I probably maybe even played him more than anyone. I don't know. I played more than most people, I guess. And I think he's very easy to level. All you have to do in a Nightfall deck is you attack like turn 2 or turn 3 with like Lunaria Shadestalker and Crescent Guardian. Then you're 2 out of 5. Then next turn you play Nocturne, you attack with everything. Then he's 5 out of 5. It's that easy. He levels up on his attack. So I'll do it again. Turn 2 you play Lunaria Shadestalker. Turn 3 you play Crescent Guardian. You attack with both. Next turn, whatever. Turn 5 you play Nocturne. Attack with everything. So it's 2 out of 5. Then it's easy 5 out of 5. You can you give the enemy vulnerable that is good at blocking. You can hook it away with like Crescent Guardian to push for the overwhelm. And then the rest of your units can be blocked. They all have fearsome. So you make huge damage swings. You can easily swing for 10 plus damage. You can swing for game. He also has the other effect where if you keep playing units every single time you play a unit from your hand, your enemy board gets -1, -0. That's good on defense to ruin your opponent's attacks. That's good on offense so they can't block the fearsomes. You have Evershade Stalker now where it clones itself whenever you play it with Nightfall. So you can keep playing Evershade Stalkers, make your opponent's board not be able to block fearsome and attack the game. He's a great chance spell in Unspeakable Horror. So I think Nocturne's just really good. Even just generically, even without his level up or like threatening game with the fearsomes, you can just put vulnerable on something and then you just kill it and it's removal. So I think Nocturne's just really, really good Nightfall. I know that people might rate him lower, but I don't really see it. I guess I'll say I play Nightfall a lot and I play Nocturne a lot. And I personally think he's really strong. Oh, also, this isn't really a personal tier list. This is a factual tier list anyway. So we'll put him in C tier. Nothing crazy either. It's like, I'm not saying he's like the best champion ever. I'm just saying he's a solid C tier champion. Next, we have Victor, another underrated champion. Victor's amazing. He actually won the EU seasonal tournament with Aphelios. He works well with Aphelios because the moon weapons can end up costing 0. It's easy to level him up with all the created cards, with the moon weapons. But let's just talk about him himself. You play him, and you instantly get the Hex Core upgrade now. You play that, he already becomes a 3-4, and he starts working towards his level up, which is now 1 of the 7, if all you've done is a Hex Core. Gets a keyword. The next turn, you played another one. He gets closer to his level up, gets 4-4 attack, and he has 2 keywords. That's already insanely strong. He can be win cons all on his own. If you get Lifesteal, it's really good. Tough, really good for scouts, stuff like that. Elusive's a win con. Overwhelm's a win con. He levels himself up. You can also just use his Hex Core upgrade that he generates for discard fodder for like Rummage or Spacey Sketcher and stuff like that. So I think Victor's just good. I think that he is good for costing 4, and he's a win con, and decks can be built around him. I think he's super underrated, and as you can see, he works amazing with Aphelios. Obviously, Aphelios is pretty broken. He's S+ tier, which is part of why Victor is probably in C tier. But still, Victor Aphelios is better than most decks in the game, so I'd put him in solid C tier. Next is Talia. This is kind of like an ongoing theme where, okay, so normally she's not that great, but if you put her with Aphelios, she's actually really good because Aphelios gets some Rock Hopper from your deck with Crescendum and hold on the field, while Talia can clone Veiled Temple, which is a good Targon deck. Obviously, Veiled Temple's the strongest mana arc in the entire game right now, and being able to make multiple of those means you can almost never run out of mana. So she's easy to level up. She levels up in the deck, and even Rock Hopper's the unit that gives you a landmark. So if you play with Aphelios, you can kind of get the whole Aphelios Veiled Temple thing going with double Veiled Temple, and you can win the game. I know a lot of this is just used for her cloning the landmark, but she still does push for solid damage. You can give her Overwhelm to push for even more damage. So Talia's good with Aphelios. Otherwise, she's a bit average. But at the same time, we only have 1/3 of the expansion out for Shurima. So I would wait and see the more cards we get. It seems like landmarks are a common theme in Shreem's identity, so if we get more, Talia will be even better. Next is Garen. Garen's pretty good because Elite's got a lot of buffs with Penitent Squire. He can be okay with Sivir somewhat too, or Renekton somewhat too, like a half Elite deck. But yeah, Garen's pretty well rounded. I mean, easy level up, very simple. You get Rally if you struck twice. You can strike once by attacking and the other time with single combat. If you use Penitent Squire, you can give him Challenger permanently. You can use Exhaust to challenge with him. He's a good blocker, so he just is a simple level up that threatens a win con, and Elite's got a lot stronger this patch, so Garen's pretty good. Next is Hecarim. Hecarim can be good with Azir in the burn decks, with Shark Chariot as well. Push for huge damage because Azir Sand Soldier's ephemeral. So when you attack them, they start leveling up Hecarim. He's also good with Lucian Hecarim. He's just a higher cost card. You can use the bomb and aggro if you're in certain shadow variants like Mistwraith and stuff like that. There's even mid-range Mistwraith decks that run like Withering Wail and stuff like that, like Foul Feast for removal. And then they have Hecarim plus or Kindler as a win con. The Harrowing, he's really good with the Harrowing. So he has a lot of different roles. I'm a solid C tier on my tier list. You actually do see him decently often. Sometimes a higher level play as just a solid a bomb for 6. So he does push a lot of damage with Overwhelm and has the ephemeral attackers. Next is Tom Soraka. Very okay deck. It can hit Masters rank. It's a lot weaker now. They nerfed Pale and Hush. But it's still a solid deck that gives some top tier extra trouble like Lee Sin. So they're good. They're two peas in a pod. Tom and Soraka kind of only work together as like a functional good deck. Like you can put in other things, but it's not as great. So yeah, Tom's good. He's also one of the only answers to Aphelios. People this season will ran him as the anti-Aphelios card. They ran like Tom Aphelios to answer other Aphelioses. So yeah, he's generically good. That's why he's slightly higher than Soraka, but Tom Soraka is the only deck in this current meta I've seen, and it's just a decent deck. Next is Tryndamere and Anivia. So Tryndamere and Anivia kind of fell off when the Sonder came out. Before, the best variants of Shadow Freyr control were Feel the Rush with Trundle Tryndamere or Anivia, but now Trundle with Sonder's top dog for the tier 1 Shadow Freyr deck. That's usually every season. They have Shadow Freyr control as a tier 1 deck. The reason it's C tier is it's still a pretty good deck. Like, yes, the Sonder Trundle is better, but if you were to queue up with Feel the Rush or Anivia, you'd still do pretty good. It's one of the better decks in the game, so C tier. Next game in the D tier is Heimerdinger. It hurts me to put Heimerdinger in D tier. I think he maybe could be C tier. I think he might be better than this. But he generates a lot of value. He kind of generates infinite value, which is insane. In Runeterra, most cards that do that are amazing. He's good with Targon and Vi, with Ionia. I've seen him sometimes. Working with Victor. The issue right now, I guess, is like, why would you run Heimerdinger when you can run Aphelios? It's kind of a weird comparison, but they both generate infinite value, which is what makes him so good. It's kind of his thing. Like, yes, the turrets are just okay attackers, but Aphelios is cheaper. He costs 3, and he generates better cards. He's in a better region. He's the best region in the game. So there's not many arguments to run Heimerdinger over Aphelios. Like, the mid weapons are straight up way better than turrets. Even the big turrets. I mean, an 8/8 for 0 is good, but I guess it's like you have to run Flash of Brilliance and a lot of quirky cards to make Heimer work. And Aphelios kind of overshadows him by just being generically good with an amazing pool of cards in his deck. So I think Heimer will go better if they nerf Aphelios because infinite card advantage generation is amazing, but right now he's just really overshadowed by how good Aphelios is. Next is Riven. Riven's actually, I think, pretty strong. I'm actually debating putting her in C tier. I don't know. I'll just leave it like this for now. She's a 3/4 for 3, which is amazing stats. It's not going to give you Overwhelm. Overwhelm's extremely strong with Lee Sin to use his Dragon Rage to go for game. It's really strong with Vi, because when Vi levels up, she has 10 attack, or just her base 1 form can easily get 10 attack. Pretty common strategy. Those are both pretty good decks. We saw that Vi Riven actually made it really far in the seasonal last season, and then this season people have hit top 5 masters with Riven Draven with Flurry of the Fists. That's really good. You can give her quick attack and then give her double attack for the Fists, or you can level up Draven. He has Overwhelm. You can give him Overwhelm with Fragments, give him Flurry of the Fist because he already has quick attack built in. So there's multiple good Riven decks, and in general, she just generates you cards that are good. So she's good. Next is Leona. She's in D tier, which is kind of weird because she's actually generically good. There's not really a deck to use her in right now, but she's just well rounded. Like, let's say you're playing a Targon deck, like Asol, and you slapped in Leona instead of Zoe or something, then she'd still be good. She's obviously a lot worse than the other champions in Targon, like Zoe and Aphelios, but good stats. Daybreak's really strong. Every Daybreak card is amazing in this game for the most part. So Priestess is one of the best Invoke generators in this game. Sorry, Soldier is one of the best 1-drops this game. He comes with 3/3 with Daybreak. Sorry, Shieldbearer 3/6 with Daybreak. Ravune is 5/5, gets your Daybreak card. So her package is really strong. She's just, I guess, too fair right now, or too standard to be picked over most of the stronger champions. I still have Quinn. Once Scouts got nerfed, she's like a lot weaker, especially without Grand Plaza is what made her so strong, getting the extra health. Made for amazing combat trades with the Scout and Challenger. Right now it's kind of an anti-meta deck I said before with Stony Suppressor, but you still play Quinn with Misfortune. It's kind of how it's always been, and she's been carried by Misfortune. But Scouts are a lot weaker than they used to be. They got multiple nerfs, so individually she's not that great, and then with Scouts they're like an okay deck. Next is Zed. Zed's kind of overshadowed right now. I've been seeing some Fiora Zed standalone decks. Those are mostly because Fiora's so strong. You can just put standalone on her and win, and Zed's like the second option. He used to be played with Lee Sin, but now that Zoe came out, it's way better just to get the invokes than to have a second target for Zenith Blade with Zed. So he's good, I guess. If they don't kill him with Mystic Shot. The issue with him is that the other champions are just so much better in those decks. Like, I do think Zed's good, especially if unanswered, but it's like Zoe is just infinite. You're picking between an S tier champion and a D tier champion. Zoe generates so much, whereas Zed is a lot more fair. Next we have Lux. Lux always comes in and out of tier 1. She's still solid with Aurelion Soul and a Targon package, but still very fair compared to Aphelios, where it's like a 3 mana infinite generation of cards, where she gets like 6 mana, or I think she's 5 mana now. I don't remember. 5-6 mana, whatever. She has barrier. She usually Final Sparks. You get to see 6+ cost of spell used, and then Aphelios has to see two different cards play that round, and he's in a better region. And the moon weapons are better a lot of the time than Final Spark. So Lux is still good to hold on the mid game and stall, but very basic. Next we have Jarvan. This is where the champs start to kind of fall off a bit. I still put him in D tier because he deletes are a generically good deck, and he can be good removal. He's a good card that's unique effect, but basically the downside of Jarvan is that he's 3 downsides. One, this is the biggest one. Like, a lot of people evaluated that Jarvan would be good, including myself, because he seemed good because we didn't know about this downside of him. You have to use his effect. If you're attacking and it's turn 6, he's in your hand, it's not like, do you want to summon Jarvan? He has to summon it. Automatically summons himself to the field, challenging the strongest enemy. It's very inconvenient to not have your options the way you want. Like, sometimes you just want to chip for a small open attack, then play like Cythria after or what have you. So it's kind of rough not having the option to start summon Jarvan. That's probably his biggest downside. But his other downsides are that he only has 3 health, so that easily dies if they like kill his barrier or whatever. And he's weak to Hush. Also, his other downside is that he's hard to level up. He needs 4/4 units to attack and then survive enemy blockers. That doesn't happen that often because you only attack like every other turn, unless you rally. And it's just kind of limited. It is nice that it leveled up in the deck, but that only happens so many times. Your opponents, especially if they know you have Jarvan in your deck, they don't want to just start leveling him up like that and chump blocking, so they'll just take damage to the face sometimes. And it's just very okay. I think they need to make him optional to summon is the big deal. Next is Taric. Taric's not that bad. He just got Golden Aegis, a card that allows you to give him barrier and rally. If you use it with him and you support enemy, you get to rally twice per turn, which is really strong. That's Crunch's best thing right now. He's good with Fiora. So yeah, he's an okay champion if you put with Fiora. It's a solid D tier. He's the weakest out of the Targon champs, but he's still good. Next we have Braum. Braum's really strong right now. Vladimir Braum Scargrounds is actually one of the better decks right now. It's a solid tier 2 deck. It's popping up a lot in the Master Ladder, and he's one of the main reasons why. You can use the new card Crimson Bloodletter to give him 1 attack. Previously in Runeterra, they buffed him 1 attack to see what happened. He became the best champ in the whole game, or top 3. He was like absolutely broken. He just completely shut down aggro mid range just on a meter just summoning him. So Crimson Bloodletter allows you to get a taste for that same Braum by giving him the 1 attack. Same with the Spargrounds. So against a lot of mid range strategies, you can kind of just play Scargrounds Braum and win the game. Next is Yasuo. There's some cute things you can do with the Aphelios with him and Graviton, but it's still just very, very average compared to all the other Aphelios Targon decks you can play. He's good with Swain. There are people who have been doing successful with Swain Yasuo Noxus now that Thorn of the Roses came out. Thorn of the Roses 5/1 for 3 that gives you Guile. You basically get a well-statted unit, or 5/1's not well-statted, but a high attack unit that gives you a Guile so you can just save the stun so you get Yasuo, and then you can stun the unit you want. I mean, 1 mana deal 2 and stun something with Yasuo on the field is very strong, so this year's always been drawing Yasuo in the Yasuo decks. If you don't draw him, it's just kind of an awkward pile of stuns deck, but if you do draw him, it's actually very good. Next is Shyvana. So, maybe a hot take. I actually don't think so. I play Dragons more than most people. When Dragons came out, I played 14 hours straight of Dragons 3 days in a row. So 14 hours, 14 hours, 14 hours. I have a lot of Shyvana practice under my belt, along with my other friend who as he got on the farthest with dragons, he did winningly far with them in a tournament, the seasonal tournament. And we both agree Shyvana's actually pretty good individually. I don't even know if she needs Fury. It would help, though. I think if you play her as a 4-4 for 4 that attacks and becomes a 5-5, it's actually pretty good. The reason why is that most things can't deal with that on turn 4, and then her level up is actually insanely strong. Her level up gives her Fury and +2/+2 when she attacks and a Strafing Strike. So when she level up, she gets free remove every turn, she gets stronger when she kills things, and gets stronger when she attack. The downside of Shyvana is the deck she's in. Dragons have a lot of problems. For one, in my opinion, the biggest problem is they have no synergy. The dragon keyword means almost nothing. All it does is level up Shyvana and let you discount things up Eclipse Dragon, but you pretty much always play Ace off Eclipse Dragon. So the only card that really makes dragons important that they have dragon tag is Herald of the Dragons, which is the 2-mana 1/1. Discount your dragons by 1. The issue is, as a 1/1 as it currently stands, is so weak and so easy to remove that it's not even played in dragon decks at all. And they just nerfed Grand Plaza, which kind of gave dragons like a tool, and now it's not really as good because it doesn't get the health anymore. So Shyvana's like okay in a dragon deck if you could play her on turn 3 off Herald of the Dragons, or there's a point to like putting dragons cohesively in a deck together. But I think they need to buff Herald of the Dragons personally. It's kind of crazy that card is like the main only synergy of dragons that discounts all the dragons, and then it's not even good enough to go in dragon deck. I think if the curve was like Dragon Chow turn 1, Herald Dragons turn 2, Shyvana turn 3, or White Flame Protector turn 3, that'd be pretty good. So I hope they buff Herald Dragons. Her other flaw to me is that her champ spell is really weak. It's one of the worst champ spells in the game. 3 mana and Grand Slaying Challenger is cute later in the game if you really need the Challenger, but most of the time it's way too expensive to reasonably activate. I think what it should do is it should be like 3 mana, grant an ally Challenger. If it's a dragon, give it +1/+1. At least then it fits well in the dragon theme, and you can still use other things if you don't want to get the dragon +1/+1. But it just, if you draw double Shyvana, you can actually make use of the Confront champ spell a bit more. So yeah, I think that Shyvana's okay. Yes, you could also improve her, making her easier level up, level in the deck, whatever. But I would buff Herald Dragons and Confront. I think that her deck needs more synergy. So the biggest thing is has no synergy, or mostly none. And then also buff her champ spell. Next is Vlad. So Vlad's not as good as Braum, but he's still, that deck's actually pretty strong. It's kind of crazy they're both in F tier if that deck's actually a solid tier 2 deck. Maybe they could go up, I don't know. But Vlad's just really easy to level up in the deck, is why you play him. You don't have to go too out of your way with the Death Lotus, the Ice Shards, and Avalanche. He levels up very nicely. Also with the Scar Grounds and stuff like that, Crimson Bloodletter. So when you play him, he's usually leveled up, and then you can push for game with him with big damage from the drain. You can heal back. A lot of times when you heal back all that health, your opponent's deck, if it's a mid-range deck, can't beat you because you have a solid board with so much health, there's just no coming back from that. It also can push for game. If it hits the Scar Mother, Varana, then she can get really strong as well with her Overwhelm and put on tons of damage. If he puts on tons of damage, he heals you a lot, and he's easy to level. Next we have Maokai Nautilus. The reason they're so low is that Deep's just one of the weakest decks right now. It's unfortunately a tier 3 deck. I like it a lot because it's aesthetically cool and a really unique playstyle in Runeterra. Having 2 whole champs around it and not being that great is kind of rough, but in the deck, individually, Nautilus is great. He's a 7-mana 13/13 with Tough that has Fearsome and discounts all your sea monsters. He also shuffles the 4+ attack cards back in your deck, which is really strong because that means mostly every card you draw for turn will be a powerful sea monster that's discounted, which is big. He's kind of the payoff of the deck. He's kind of like Shyvana, where he's held back by the deck, though. The deck has extremely weak early game. Dread Judge is only a 1/1. Thorian Toad's a 1/4, can only hold you down so much. Your opponent gets to put on a lot of pressure in the early game, and if you don't stop them, they just, by the time you're deep, like, they're killing you. And it's just extremely hard to go deep while also trying to keep the board and not die. Even if they don't kill you, they usually have board control by the time you go deep, and you have to like work the whole time to get it back, like Devour the Deaths and stuff like that by removing their cards. So by the time Nautilus comes to the field, you already had a huge disadvantage, usually. You could run cards like Withering Wail and like Grassy Undying and stuff, and like Vile Feast to deal with aggro decks that pressure you a lot. But the issue with that is that, okay, your Withering Wail is good versus aggro, but if you don't draw it, you still lose to aggro because based on the in-engine, the sea creature deck is just weak early game. If you do draw it, it's good versus aggro, but versus other matchups it sucks. So it's like a trade-off, right? Withering Wail sucks versus Sonic Trundle, it sucks versus most mid-range decks. It's kind of just an anti-aggro card. So it's like you have to put in a card just to beat aggro. If you don't play against aggro, then you're screwed. If you don't draw it, you're screwed. So they need to buff. Hopefully the Dredger is back to a 2/1 or like some kind of deep support would be nice. Maokai is similar. There's a Milkai deck where you can try and deck them out, but it's more of a meme deck than a good deck. Maokai is good though. He's one of the win cons of Deep is decking out your opponent. That's how you beat Lissandra Trundle and stuff like that. The more control matchups. He also generates a lot of saplings, which can remove enemy units all game, hold down the mid game like that. He also is good with Sea Scarab because it helps you mill more and he sees the saplings tossed. He's a win con. He helps you go deep, and he's good. The issue is that if they can answer him for 4, like Culling Strike and stuff like that, then you just kind of lose 4 mana and then you're behind. Next is Katarina. She's getting a bit better because she actually has decks she can be played in. I mean, Katarina also has always been decent. Katarina is 0 with the Sand Soldiers is actually decent. You get the rally to attack more Sand Soldiers every turn. Katarina has recall synergy again for the Yasuo. Her Blade's Edge actually does hit a lot of things this meta for the 1 damage. Someone did well at a seasonal in Southeast Asia with Ashe. You have Ashe Katarina. I guess to attack again with the freezes. You can use Legion Marauders with her, which is kind of a meme, but not so much of a meme because Legion Marauders are actually a decent deck, I guess, for an F-tier champion like Katarina, where you can attack them multiple times. They become really big with strength in numbers. So she actually has decks she works in that are decent, and she can be good sometimes. That leaves us with Lulu, the last champion and the worst champion, in my opinion, of Legend Runeterra. So Lulu actually individually is, I think, decent, personally. 3 mana 2/3 that buffs things to 4/4. Easy level up of supporting allies, and then she gives them 5/5. Then each turn you can give your enemy vulnerable or give yourself barrier. I think she's good individually. The biggest problem, again, a lot of the F-tier champions have is their deck. There's no good support deck in Legend Runeterra. There just isn't. Maybe you can try like Lulu Shen, Lulu Fiora, Lulu Zed. The issue is War Chef's the 2 mana 2/3 in Demacia. When that was a 2 mana 2/3, she actually was a solid tier 2 deck. She was actually all over high master ladder. But since they nerfed War Chefs, I guess in a way to nerf Scouts, I think it was the point. It has nerfed support Archetype because it's one of the generically good support units, and she hasn't been the same ever since. Support, a lot of things can go wrong because they can stop the card you're supporting, the card you're using for like Lulu the supporter, and there's just multiple ways to deal with your things through stuns and hush and stuff like that. The payoff isn't even that high. Like even if you get the support off, it's not like you're going to lose to a 4/4 that easily. And they also run out of steam easily because they don't really have card generation. They brick because they have to have multiple cards. They're not really that self-sufficient because they have to support each other to work. It's in Ionia, which is one of the weaker regions right now. I mean, Ionia is pretty strong because Lee Sin is like insane, but when you play outside of Lee Sin, you just play supports. It's pretty weak. So I guess the problem with Lulu is individually I think she's fine, but her whole deck is kind of weak in terms of long game, mid game, stuff like that. But that's my champion tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm excited to see how the streaming champions do going forward. I'm also excited to see how the patches change things. We get a patch in like 10 days, I think. We're also going to get more cards with the rest of the streaming expansion. So I'll be sure to make another champ tier list video when the meta changes and we have more champions. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.